Hey guys, welcome back to the channel, where we review stories that beautiful people like yourselves post on the internet. We got two stories for you today. Let's jump right into them. Story 1. My 25 male family cut contact with me 5 years ago after a fight with my younger brother. Now they want me to come back, but I'm having doubts about it. My family pretty much cut all ties with me at the end of 2015. Things have been a bit turbulent for a while, but when I went over to my parents' house for Christmas in 2015, I got very drunk one night and got into an argument with my younger brother, which ended up turning physical. I was 19 at the time, he would have been 15, and he came out of it pretty badly. Without going into massive detail, he had said something which struck a nerve. I won't say what because it's quite personal and not really relevant here, and I ended up injuring him quite badly. There was a question of potentially involving the police, but nothing ever happened in regards to that. In the end, they all just told me that they wanted nothing to do with me anymore, which is fair enough. I was completely in the wrong and they were absolutely right to want to call me off. I'm not complaining about that in the slightest. I had already moved out by that stage, so it wasn't a case of kicking me out. It was more just telling me to never come back. Again, I can't blame them for this at all, and would be surprised if you could either. This post isn't about me complaining about being cut off or pretending that I didn't deserve it, because I did, and I'm not trying to play the victim here. I genuinely regret what I did, and have spent time trying to self-improve in the wake of it. It was quite difficult for me to come to terms with this for the first year or so afterwards. The only person in my family I had any contact with was my mom. We never really spoke in depth, just small updates, wishing each other happy birthday and things like that. Honestly though, after that first year, things have gotten so much better for me. I stopped drinking, which was the root of a lot of my problems. I got my head down and ended up doing very well at uni. I've now got a job that I love, and I've been with my girlfriend for the best part of 4 years. And things are absolutely great. To be brutally honest, I don't miss my family. My relationship with them hadn't been great for a while before the fight, and as far as I was concerned, I didn't miss them and they didn't miss me. And being on a non-contact basis with all of them apart from occasional contact with my mom was for the better. However, over the last few months, my mom began messaging me much more frequently and asking more personal questions about my life, my work, my relationship, and so forth. I thought it was just boredom on her part, but she maintained it for a while, and began to introduce the idea of me coming back to visit her at some point, which I always shrugged. She started to persist with it, and then yesterday it all came to a head when she added me to a WhatsApp group chat with the rest of the family. I was then told how they had all come to, quote, come to a family decision that 5 years was enough, end quote. That my brother had, quote unquote, found it in his heart to forgive me for what happened, and that they wanted me to come over at some point to catch up on lost time. These are all quotes from what they sent me. I didn't say much, I just said I wanted time to think. I'm quite torn on this now. Part of me feels like I'm obliged to go along with it. They cut contact with me because of my own actions, and if my brother's forgiven me and wants to re-establish contact with me, then it's my duty to do so. On the other hand, I feel like since contact was cut, my life improved a lot. My relationship with them had been on a downward slope for a fair bit of a time beforehand, and I just haven't found myself missing any of it. That's why I'm asking for advice. Would you say that I am obliged to go and re-establish contact because it was my fault that contact was cut, or do you think it would be acceptable for me to not do so? Before the fight, in what ways was your relationship with your family rocky? Not that you have to go into detail or anything, of course. I ask because it sounds like some of their actions and behaviors leading up to the fight weren't of the best of nature either. Have they accepted responsibility for their roles in what happened and apologized? Or, from their perspective, is this 100% on you and you're the villain and they are graciously providing another chance to? Also, kudos for pulling yourself out of a bad situation. I know that's extremely difficult to do. Reply. They were always quite overbearing when I was younger. You could say overprotective or repressive, depending on how you looked at it. By the time I was 15 or 16, they couldn't really stop me from doing things anymore. And I started doing things that went against their quote-unquote values, which caused friction, especially between me and my father. So, for example, they were strong believers in no sex before marriage. Then I got caught with a girl when I was 16, and he barely spoke to me for about a month. They do probably see it as a gracious another chance. That's the impression I get from them, at least. You're not obligated to re-establish contact with them, but also consider the fact that the last time you had anything to do with them, you were still a child. Teen years are always rocky, obviously more for you than most, but you're not a kid anymore. That doesn't mean you need to rebuild relationships, just that any relationships that you do build will be completely different. You also have the option of pulling back at any point. You could try meeting up and see how it goes. You could maybe only see them a few times a year. It's not an all or nothing situation. You can work out how involved you'd like to be with them, which includes maintaining the status quo. Personally, I feel like it would be worth at least a few meetups to see how things go. You're a different person now than you were then, and they're likely different people now too. You don't need them in your life, but you may find that being around them enhances your life in some way, or you may find that being around them brings only negative feelings. Just because you give it a try doesn't mean you have to keep them in your life if you don't want to. In my opinion, if you don't, you'll always have a nagging what-if feeling. Reply: that's been one of my main thoughts. I don't want to regret not doing it in 5 or 10 years just because I don't want to now. I've enjoyed having conversations with my mom, but I've never really seen eye to eye with the others. It's a difficult one. I wasn't initially planning on doing an update for that post, but the amount of responses I got from it were absolutely unprecedented, so I decided it was right of me to do one. I didn't respond to every single comment, but I did read all of them. I greatly appreciate everyone's input, whether it was positive or negative, or telling me to go back or cut content completely. It was really good to get different takes on the situation because, at the time, it was a lot to take in, and still is in a way. I'll start off by saying that soon after that post was written, I phoned my brother. We talked for a few minutes about how things were going, and then I apologized to him for what happened back in 2015. He didn't specifically say he forgave me, but he was amicable and said that he appreciated me doing it. I'm glad I did it. I know 5.5 years is a long time to have gone without doing it, but that was the first vocal conversation I've had with him since the family cut contact. He told me that the whole incident hadn't left him with any lasting mental or physical damage, and while I have no way of knowing whether that's completely true, I'm glad to hear it. I don't want to make it about myself, but it also feels like a bit of weight lifted off my shoulders. In terms of the actual resumption of contact, it won't be happening for now. After a few days of talking to the family as a collective in the group chat, which I have now left, as well as some individual conversations with different members, I told them that I was happy to increase contact with them through messaging, but that as things stand, I didn't think resuming face-to-face contact would be right, and that I wasn't going to do it. As I stated in the initial post, I was already having severe doubts about it, and the conversations I had with them pretty much made my mind up for me. I'll list a few examples of it here. Much of the discussion I had with family was done through a group chat in which I, 25 male, was added by my mom, 45 female. This group chat also contained Dad, 54 male, and my 2 brothers, 20 male and 14 male. The group chat was titled Reunion, so it was pretty obvious what their intentions were. The initial language used by them when I was added bothered me. I gave some examples of it in the original post. Things like my mom saying my brother had found it in his heart to forgive me, and then coming to a family decision that 5 years was enough. It made it seem like there was no chance of it being a normal family relationship at all, and that I would always be indebted and subservient to them in some form for that. As I said, I had no issue with being cut off and felt they were pretty justified in doing so. But that doesn't mean I would be prepared to come back and be in a constant state of owing one, and likely being made to feel pressure to do things for them because they were oh so kind to find it in their hearts to let me back. This sort of language continued throughout me being in the group chat. Some more examples were being told that I had lots of work to do if we wanted a normal relationship. Notice that they didn't say we. And I was also compared to the prodigal son multiple times by my very religious parents, which just made me think that they were doing it for their own spiritual reasons, rather than actually being interested in having me back as a part of the family. The final nail in the coffin was that when I specifically expressed doubts about it, my dad said, "After all you did to us as a family, we've decided to let you back in." And then pretty much went on to tell me that I should be biting their hands off for the chance to make amends, and that I was ungrateful for not doing so. I told them I was backing out of it pretty soon after that. A few of the replies to my original post asked if any of them needed an organ. I initially brushed this off as a joke, but after some of the conversations I had, I genuinely think it's possible that that's true. My girlfriend, 24 female, is also a big reason why I was initially having doubts. And a couple of things that were said by my dad completely reinforced these. I 100% know that he would dislike her, not through any fault of her own, but mainly because he has some very old-fashioned views on women, and he's also quite racist. She's only half white, and when I was younger, my dad made it pretty clear that he didn't want me to date outside of my race. In the group chat, he described her as my quote-unquote exotic girlfriend, and made a couple of very stereotypical assumptions about her based on her race, which made it pretty clear to me that he still found it wrong and abnormal of me to be with a girl who isn't completely white. If I resumed a somewhat normal father-son relationship with him, I am almost certain that he would try to interfere in some way and would at the very least encourage me to end things with her. It's not like I've only been seeing her for a month either. We've been together for almost 4 years and have discussed marriage, so she absolutely takes priority over the family. Those are the main reasons behind my choosing not to go down the route to face-to-face contact with the family. There are a few other things too, such as the fact that they seem awfully interested in grandchildren who didn't even exist, and also that I suspected that it was all my mom's doing and that the rest of the family weren't that interested. I'm fairly sure she was feeding the others lines. My 14-year-old brother was typing an awful lot like my 45-year-old mom. Let's put it that way. With all these factors combined with my initial doubts about it, made my mind up that I wasn't going to resume face-to-face contact. I messaged them, telling them that while I did appreciate them trying to get me to do so, I just had too many doubts about it to go and start meeting with them face-to-face or going to their house. I did say that they all had my number now, and were free to text me at any point if they wanted to talk, and then left the group chat. I know they've all read it, because they've all been online since I sent it, but I haven't had a single message from any of them. To be honest, I'm not entirely sure if I ever will, and yet, I can't really say that I feel sad about it. I'm glad I've apologized to my brother, and if that's the end of all contact with them, then so be it. It is what it is. My mom was contacting me every day in the months leading up to her deciding I should start seeing the family again. Now it's beginning to seem to me that she was doing so because she wanted me to return to them on my hands and knees, groveling and begging for forgiveness. Things certainly began to turn a bit sour when it became clear that I wasn't going to do that. Perhaps she sees it as the final betrayal and wants nothing more to do with me now. At the end of the day, I'm never going to pretend that they were for a second wrong for cutting contact with me. They did it to protect their 15-year-old son, and I completely understand it. Ultimately though, I grew up, ended my addiction, and built a life for myself off the back of it without them involved in my life. It's very likely that they still had this image of the 19-year-old who turned completely white when he was told they wanted nothing more to do with him. But that really isn't me anymore. When they initially kicked me out, I felt like I needed them, even though we didn't have the greatest relationship. 5 years on from that, I certainly don't think I do anymore. I apologize to anyone who read the initial post and wanted me to go and see them in person again, but this is just how things have turned out. Once again, thank you to everyone for offering support and advice, and I hope that anyone reading this who has their own issues with family and estrangement is able to navigate them and build a relationship back if they so wish. I don't condone what you did to your brother, but honestly, it's good that you're away from your family right now. They're clearly not reconciling out of genuine want, but to probably save face or try and save you from yourself. They probably harbor some degree of guilt over cutting off their 19-year-old son, but with how your life is going and your relationship with your girlfriend and their racist views, it's best that you stay away and just continue your life separately. You made the right choice. Reply: thank you. Yeah, I'll never condone it either. It was completely out of order. There are a lot of reasons why I think they might have tried to resume contact with me. It could be spiritual. It could be that their friends told them to. But whatever it is, I don't think it's that they want to have a relationship with me. I think it was the right choice in the end as well. In your first post, I got the impression that not only was your family severely toxic, but your drinking problem was partly fueled by them. I'm not surprised that you didn't go to see them, if I could pick that up out of a few paragraphs. Also, as a biracial woman, it wouldn't be fair to subject your girlfriend to a very racist, sexist dad when she is so deep in your relationship with no prior understanding that she would have to interact with him. I'm happy to hear that you're thinking of her in all of this mess too. One more thing, good for you on getting your closure, but ultimately, this situation seems just as toxic as before. Any recovering addict could end up relapsing because of this. Not a risk I would take if I were you. Regardless, this is your business, and you made the best decision for you, and that's all that matters. Reply: thank you. I'm glad I didn't subject her to it, because she would probably pretend to be fine with it and end up being quite upset. The situation has been pretty toxic for all involved, but I'm walking away from it feeling quite sound in my head that I made the right choice. I am quite confident that I won't go back on the drink. I have a good support network as well, so hopefully all will be well. Thank you for updating. Really good that you apologized to your brother. It probably was a big relief for both of you, and you didn't make a quick impulsive decision on whether to renew contact or keep them cut off. You took your time to really think over the pros and cons and made the decision you felt was best for you. Again, congratulations on turning your life around. I wish you well. Guys, if you're enjoying this video so far and you want to be an a-hole to the like button, please go ahead and bug them to see a movie with you, and when they say yes, fall asleep 15 minutes into the movie. Story 2. After 5 years of no contact with my 23 male family members, one searched me up and saw that I had gotten married and have a 1-year-old son. Vase threatens to sue me for visitation rights, which they're able to do in my state. I moved out on midnight of my 18th birthday and left a note that I'm going to be better off without them and that I'm legally an adult now, so they can't report me missing and force me to move back in with them. My life has been so much better since then. I got married and had a child with the love of my life, and things have been peaceful until I got a couple of emails. The TLDR versions of the emails is basically, one family member decided to search me up and ended up finding me because my name isn't exactly common. They saw the life that I was able to build for myself in terms of marrying the woman of my dreams and to building a very good financial status. What seemed to be the biggest sore point was the fact that I had a 1-year-old kid and didn't tell anybody. I'm guessing they don't know what no contact means. They said that they were going to sue me for visitation rights. Where I'm at, a grandparent or sibling is able to sue for visitation rights for their niece or nephew or grandchild. I haven't replied to any of these emails yet, but I don't know what to do. What legal rights do I have to keep myself and my child from being exposed to my family? And how do I go about stressing the point that I want no contact with a reason? Even if your state acknowledges grandparents' rights, that doesn't mean that their lawsuit will be successful. In fact, their chances are slim to none. For grandparents' rights to be enforced, you have to show that there is a meaningful relationship between the child and the grandparent, which in this case does not exist. I could just wait and see if they actually sue, then get a lawyer, but fortunately, they don't have a very good case here, so don't worry about it. I think you should be contacting a lawyer. However, I don't think that they have any ground here. Grandparents' rights are usually for if they already have a relationship with a child and something happens to one of the parents. For example, grandparent is involved in the grandchild's life, their child dies, and the other parent decides they don't want them to have any relationship with their kid. Your parents and the other family members don't have any relationship with either of you. I don't think a court would actually grant them rights. Again, talk to a lawyer though. Grandparents' rights are for when the GP has an established relationship with a child. Since your child has never met their grandparents or their relatives, they have a very weak case. It's not impossible they'd get any visitation, but it's very, very unlikely to happen. Keep ignoring them until you are actually notified of a lawsuit. I first want to thank everyone who messaged me privately. Literally every person who messaged me was helpful and so nice. To all of you guys, I sincerely thank you. Update. Some people were messaging me, and some people commented telling me that I needed to move states. Unfortunately, I've built a life and career out here, and that is simply not possible. I own a property here as well. As for those people, I didn't contact them. My lawyer contacted them. I am again not going into detail, but they haven't emailed me or contacted me since then. I got a new phone number and a house number, and so did my wife, just to be on the safe side. I also have a new email, which I have been meaning to change anyways. I deleted some of my social media and only kept the stuff that has to deal with my band. My Instagram has been privated, and I deleted a lot of people just to be on the safe side. So yeah, that's it. Sorry it's not the eventful, action-packed update some of you wanted. And at the end of the day, I'm still not contacted by them, and hopefully they won't try to do anything dumb. I'm basically pretending like I never got that email, and my life is the same as it was before. Thanks, dudes. Edit. GPR stands for Grandparents' Rights. It keeps grandparents the ability to sue someone for visitation rights to their child. Yeah, your troubled parents have obviously hurt you enough to cut them off. Now, without any kind of mending or compassion, they reach out with a threat. Their first contact in 5 years is to threat to sue. That is their move, and it is revealing of deeply immature people. What court would permit these vultures, who've already pecked at you for 2 decades, a second meal? It is in the best interest of the baby and the father to remain distant from the grandparents. It sounds like things are happy for you now. The fact that they couldn't appreciate that or extend an apology or something human is so sad. The only benefit of poorly evolved people is the example they set. They teach us not to be like them. They were abusive to you. Who's to say they won't be to your kid? If I had kids and my parents had been abusive to me, I would do everything in my power. I can get very extreme and go to great lengths to avoid certain situations if my mental or physical health is at risk. I've slept in an abandoned car too, just to get away from an ex. To not allow them visitation rights based on that fact alone, and that I would be constantly worried for my kid's safety, mentally and physically. I understand you've settled down now, but that situation sounds like a lot of trouble, or is going to be. Uneventful endings in this case are good. Glad to hear everything is starting to come together. Alright guys, that's it for today's stories. Thank you very much for listening. Please remember to smash the like button for me, and subscribe to the channel to keep listening to these stories. Thanks again for all of your support guys. We will be seeing you in the next one.